Good morning. Today is Wednesday of the 28th week in Ordinary Time. We are about in the middle of the beautiful month of October. As I have been doing over the last several weeks, I'm going through my recent pastoral on the Holy Eucharist entitled, It is the Lord. I'm going through it section by section. And while not reading the whole thing to you, I leave that to yourselves. I do encourage you to get a copy of it or go online at the diocesan website and read it for yourselves. I'm coming to the final section. There are 4 sections in the pastoral letter. And the final section I titled Practical Considerations. And under that title, I talk about 2 different considerations, the Most Holy Eucharist and the Holy Sacrifice of the Mass. I'll talk about that briefly today. And next week we'll conclude when I speak about the Sacrament of Penance and Reconciliation and going to confession. But to the point today, the practical considerations concerning the Holy Eucharist and Mass, you can understand they're very much intimately connected to one another. I make 6 different observations, and I won't go through all 6. I'll speak about just a few of them. The first one I wish to speak about is what I titled the first consideration, and that is be on time for Mass. Our Mass is an integral sacramental celebration from beginning to end. And so if we're late for coming to Mass, we are not really receiving all of the graces we receive when we are at Mass. We're not fully engaged and participating in Mass. And so whatever time Mass is scheduled to begin, make certain you're there on time. Now I realize because of bad weather or something else, something may intervene where once in a while you may be a little late. But don't make a habit of being late. And to miss all or part of Mass is a serious sin. Number 2, it's not number 2 in my pastoral letter, but the second point I would like to talk about is when you come to Mass, please come into church and prepare yourselves to celebrate Mass as fruitfully as possible. That means being quiet, meditating, and being ready for the beginning of Mass, and the same when Mass is ended. It doesn't require a great deal. Just stay a few minutes and make a silent thanksgiving. But in order to do that, there can't be visiting in church, loud talking in church. That all should be done outside of the body of the church, for reverence for our Lord present in the Blessed Sacrament in the tabernacle, and out of respect for those people who wish to either prepare themselves for Mass with a bit of silent prayer, and the same after Mass, to make a silent thanksgiving for graces received. Now, is something we have been discussing among the priests, and something that I will have an announcement about in a not too distant future, is the exchange of the sign of peace. I suspended that during our COVID period, and I think everyone can understand why. But I have not reinstated it, and it's not because of COVID. What I noticed in my home diocese, what I've noticed here in the Diocese of Bismarck, I'm not singling any parishes out, the sign of peace has never been exchanged properly. and the way the fathers of the Second Vatican Council called for it to be exchanged. What we usually see is at the moment when the deacon says, let us exchange the sign of peace, people are turning around, reaching ahead to the people in the pew in front of them or behind them. There's talking, there's waving of hands to people across the aisle. Now, you may not be guilty of that, but it happens, and it happens way too frequently. That is very disrespectful, because our Lord is truly, really present on the altar in the Most Holy Eucharist. The consecration has already taken place. What the Council Fathers called for, and what is written right into the general instruction of our current Roman Missal, the Church says in the final sentence that this exchange of the sign of peace should be done in a sober manner with those near to you. Now, as the diocesan bishop, I'm qualified to clarify that and specify that, and I intend to do that. But I'll give you a hint of what that means. What it means is those on either side of you, you may turn to them and in a nice and respectful way, simply say to them, peace be with you. And the response is always, and with your spirit. If you have been present for a confirmation ceremony at which I'm confirming our young people, I would suggest you do what I do. After they are signed with sacred chrism on their foreheads with the sign of the cross, I say to them, peace be with you, and they respond, and with your spirit. We don't embrace, we don't have to shake hands, but that's what the Council Fathers envisioned, and that's what the general instruction of the Roman Missal calls for. It's that sober manner. It's meant to be the completion of the penitential act and rite which we prayed at the beginning of Mass, so that at the beginning we are reconciled with God, so that we can celebrate Mass fruitfully. And at this point, before we receive Holy Communion, it's an expression, if you will, of our that regard, that love we are to have for our neighbor, as the Lord taught us the great commandment, for love of God and love of our neighbor as ourselves. In both instances, it's supposed to be done respectfully, and as the Church uses that term, in a sober manner. And so I will reinstate the sign of peace at a certain time, but I feel compelled, I have to tell people, it's not kind of a break at Mass. It's meant to be as reverent as we are at the moment of the consecration. It's meant to be as reverent as we are when we come to receive our Lord in Holy Communion. And finally, I do address how to receive our Lord in Holy Communion, whether you receive on the tongue or in the hand. There is one proper way of doing that, and whether you receive standing or kneeling. That's also covered in my pastoral, but I'll leave that to you to read and consider as we move forward. So again, please do get a copy of the pastoral. It is the Lord. And be prepared. We will finish our discussion of this next Wednesday when I speak a bit about some practical considerations regarding the sacrament of penance and reconciliation and going to confession. So may God bless you in this late week now in our church year of grace and favor from the Lord.